No, please do not. Move cleaner. I am not a cleaner, I am a person. In the abyssal dungeon, you are what we say you are. Nyxia stumbled as they dragged her down the corridor, wrists tied, mouth full of iron panic, boots and laughter chasing her like hounds. The hood they had shoved over her head kept slipping, and she fought it with jerks of her shoulders, because even a slice of light felt like a weapon in a place that fed on darkness. The air reeked of vinegar and smoke and something older, a sour note that reminded her of old wounds and old prayers that no one answered. Please, I will scrub every hall. I will do anything, just do not take me to him. A guard leaned close enough that she felt his breath on her ear. You are already taken. Ahead of them, the alchemist walked with steady steps, as if this was a polite visit and not a march toward a cage. His gloves were spotless. His hair was bound back with a strip of white cloth that looked like a bandage for a wound he did not have. Nyxia hated him most for that calm, because it told her he had done this before, many times, and every scream had only entertained him. You promised I would not go inside the cage. The alchemist did not turn. I promised you would keep living. I did not promise you would keep living comfortably. They reached the final door, a slab of metal etched with runes that prickled against Nyxia's skin even from a distance. Two guards braced their shoulders, another pressed his palm to a symbol, and the lock sighed like a throat opening. From inside came a sound that was not human. A scrape, then a wet inhale, then a growl that shook dust from the ceiling. Nyxia stopped, as if her bones had turned to stone. That is him. A guard yanked her forward. Lord Vaelithor, yes. Lord, she echoed, disbelieving. The alchemist finally looked back. His eyes were pale, almost gentle if you did not know what lived behind them. Do not flatter him with titles. He is a beast now. The cage will hold him, the runes will burn him, and your presence will show me what remains inside. My presence. You smell of something he should not remember. That is what interests me. Nyxia fought, twisting her bound hands, trying to bite, trying to kick, trying to become difficult enough that they would choose an easier victim. They were stronger. They dragged her across the threshold and into a chamber that felt colder than the grave. It was an alchemical laboratory disguised as a prison. Glass tubes glowed with sickly light. Chains hung like vines. Metal tables were stained and scrubbed and stained again, and at the center stood the cage. It was not iron. It was black metal threaded with silver lines, each line a rune, each rune a promise of pain. Inside crouched a shape that made Nyxia breath stop. A man, if he could still be called that. Huge, bare to the waist, skin scored by burns that did not heal. Dark hair tangled down his shoulders. Hands that looked capable of crushing stone. Eyes that were not eyes at all, but pits of storm darkness edged with a faint violet ember. When Nyxia entered, the thing in the cage lifted its head. The air changed, like a room holding its breath. It smelled her, and the growl deepened, turning into a sound that was almost a word. Nyxia. Nyxia froze. No one had said her name. The alchemist smiled. Yes, yes, say it again. Speak, beast. The creature surged forward. Chains snapped tight. Runes flared. Pain hissed through the cage like steam. But instead of lunging at the bars to strike, he pressed his face to them as if breathing her in could keep him alive. Nyxia felt tears spill, hot and humiliating. Do not, please. The guards shoved her. The cage door opened with a groan. Nyxia planted her feet. Do not do this. The alchemist stepped closer, voice soft as a lullaby. If he tears you apart, it will tell me he is only an animal. If he does not, it will tell me I can break him in other ways. Nyxia screamed as hands threw her into the cage. The door slammed. The runes flared. The beast moved. He did not pounce. He did not strike. He circled her, slow, shoulders rolling, nostrils flaring. He looked at her like he had not seen a human face in a century, like her fear was a star and he was starving for light. Nyxia backed into the bars, cold metal against her spine. Do not come closer. His voice came out ragged, scraped raw by disuse. Do not move fast. Nyxia blinked, stunned by the shape of human words. You can speak. I can remember, he said, as if the sentence cost him. Outside the cage, the alchemist tapped his fingers together. Interesting, how long will it last? Vaelithor did not look at him. His gaze stayed on Nyxia, and there was hunger in it, yes, but there was also grief, the kind that turns men into monsters when it has nowhere to go. He spoke again, quieter. I will not touch you, not unless you try to run. Nyxia let out a short, broken laugh. Where would I run? His eyes flickered, and the violet became clearer, less feral. Tell me your name. You said it. Tell me, he insisted. Nyxia swallowed, throat tight. Nyxia. He repeated it like an oath. Nyxia. The alchemist leaned closer to the bars. Good, very good. Now, beast, remember your chains, remember your place. Vaelithor bared his teeth. Nyxia expected blood. Instead, he shifted, placing himself between her and the watching men outside. His back became a wall. His body, scarred and powerful, blocked the view of her trembling. It should have made her feel trapped. It did the opposite. For the first time since they dragged her here, Nyxia felt a fraction less alone. Hours dragged. Lanterns burned down. Guards drank and joked. The alchemist made notes, murmuring about scent and resonance and memory. Inside the cage, Vaelithor did not sleep. He paced, then stopped, then paced again, like a creature forced into a ritual that could keep him sane. Nyxia sat on the floor, knees to her chest, trying not to shiver. "Why are you here?" she whispered. He answered without looking away from the door. "Because I was born wrong in the eyes of men who fear shadows. Because I had power they wanted to bottle. Because I refused to kneel." Nyxia stared at his profile. Under the wildness, there was a face that could have been beautiful once. Sharp cheekbones, a strong mouth, a jaw clenched so hard it trembled. "And you?" he asked. "I cleaned floors. I begged for work. I tried to keep my child fed." Vaelithor turned so suddenly Nyxia flinched. "Your child." Nyxia regretted the words instantly. "Do not, please." His nostrils flared again, and Nyxia knew he was smelling fear, truth, and the shape of her life. "Not here," he said, "not now." Outside, the alchemist shouted an order. "Leave them, let the night test him." Footsteps retreated, the door locked, darkness settled. Nyxia hugged herself tighter. "He is going to come back in the morning and see if I am dead." Vaelithor crouched a few paces away, as if proximity itself was temptation. "In the morning, he will see you breathing." "How can you be sure?" "Because I will make sure." Nyxia lifted her head, confusion mixing with terror. "Why?" "Because they put you in here to break me. I will not give them that gift." The words should have been cold, political, vengeful. Instead, they sounded like an oath whispered at the edge of a bed. Nyxia felt heat crawl across her skin, shameful and unwanted. "Do not say things like that." He stared at her bound hands, bruised. "They should not have touched you." He shifted, chains clinking, and the runes hissed. Pain licked his skin. Nyxia watched him endure it without a sound, and something inside her cracked open, the part that still believed monsters were simple. "If you can remember, then you can escape," she whispered. His laugh was silent. "Escape, yes, I dream of it." "Then do it." "Not tonight." "Why not?" "Because if I break this cage now, they will kill you first," he said, calm and certain. Nyxia stared. "You could kill them." "I could, but I would not be fast enough to stop a knife at your throat." Nyxia closed her eyes, furious at her own shaking. "Then we die." "No," Vaelithor said, "you will live." When Nyxia opened her eyes again, he was closer. Not close enough to touch, but close enough that she could feel his warmth, close enough to see the man buried under the beast. He was looking at her like she was a memory that hurt. "You smell like night rain," he murmured. "I smell like soap and fear." He shook his head. "No, you smell like the world before they chained me." Nyxia did not understand, but her heart did. Her heart heard grief and answered with something dangerously tender. "Do not look at me like that." I like what? Like I belong to you. Silence thickened. Vaelithor breathed in slowly. You do not belong to anyone. Not him, not them, not me. Then stop. He lowered his gaze, as if obeying cost him. I will stop trying to claim you with my eyes, but I will not stop wanting you safe. Nyxia swallowed hard. You do not even know me. I know your name, he said. I know your fear. I know you begged not to be taken to me, which means you were thinking. That means you are alive. And if I had been different, then I would have killed myself rather than touch you, he said quietly. Do not say that. They will regret this night, he murmured, forehead against the bars. Nyxia whispered, almost without meaning to. Will you take revenge for me? Vaelithor opened his eyes, and the violet flared like a promise. For you and for myself. The night went on, slow and brutal. Nyxia dozed in fragments, waking each time the beast inside him surged, each time his hands flexed, each time he inhaled too sharply. Every time she woke, he was there, awake, guarding the space between her and the door. In the morning, the alchemist returned. He stopped at the cage, eyebrows lifting. Alive. Let me go, Nyxia rasped. The alchemist ignored her and studied Vaelithor. Your eyes are clearer. Touch her and I will tear your hands off, Vaelithor said through clenched teeth. The alchemist smiled wider. Good, that is the reaction I wanted. He signaled. The cage door opened. No. Guards reached in, grabbing Nyxia arms. Vaelithor surged, runes flaring, pain ripping across his skin. He roared, a sound that made the guards recoil, but chains held him. Nyxia was dragged out. Before the door slammed, she met Vaelithor's gaze. I will not forget, she whispered. Neither will I, he answered like a curse. Years passed like a knife, drawn slowly across skin. Nyxia tried to forget. She married forgetfulness to survive, because survival required silence. She moved through crowded alleys of Gloomspire Citadel, head down, hands busy, heart locked away. She had a son now. Oryn was small and serious, with eyes too bright for soot-stained streets. She lived in a room that smelled of damp wood and boiled cabbage, and every night she checked the door twice, because she had learned that locks were comfort, not safety. Then one evening, a man appeared on her stairs. He did not belong to the slum. His boots were polished. His cloak was dark and heavy. The shadows around him seemed to lean in like obedient dogs. Nyxia froze with a basket of laundry in her arms. Who are you? My name is Jerk, the man said, voice respectful but unyielding. I bring a message from Lord Vaelithor. Nyxia blood went cold. No. He is alive, Jerk said. That is impossible. Nothing is impossible in Gloomspire. He is free, and he has remembered you. Nyxia wanted to run, but Oryn was behind her, peeking from the doorway, clutching a wooden toy wolf. "Tell your lord to forget me," Nyxia said. "He tried," Jerk replied. "It did not work." "Why are you here?" "Because he has decided you will meet him." "Decided," Nyxia repeated, bitter. "You can come willingly, or you can come with guards. He prefers willingly." Nyxia stepped back, putting herself between Jerk and her son. "If he touches my child, I will kill him." Jerk looked past her shoulder, noticing the boy. "He will not harm the child." "You cannot promise that." "I can. He does not break promises to those he claims." Nyxia flinched. "Claims?" Jerk's voice lowered. "You are in debt. Your landlord has sold that debt to the syndicate. They will come." "How do you know that?" "Because the syndicate tried to sell your debt to my lord as an insult. They wanted him to pay for the privilege of watching you dragged away." "Dragged where?" "To a workhouse or a brothel or the river. Depends on who bids higher." Oryn pressed into Nyxia's side. "Mama." Nyxia forced herself to breathe. "We are not going anywhere." Jerk took a sealed envelope from inside his cloak and held it out. "You will go tonight." "No." "If you stay, the syndicate takes you. If you go, Lord Vaelithor takes you." "You talk like I am an object." "In this city, you are an object to everyone except one man." At dusk, a carriage waited at the edge of the slum. Its wheels were clean, as if mud avoided it. Oryn climbed in first, eyes wide, and Nyxia followed, heart pounding. The ride through Gloomspire Citadel felt like ascending into a different world. Smoke thinned. Streets widened. Lamps burned with steady blue flame. Buildings grew taller and darker, carved into elegance. In the squares, statues of old kings stared down with chipped faces and hollow eyes. Nyxia whispered to herself, "Do not be afraid, do not show fear." The carriage stopped before a gate of black stone. Beyond it rose the Shadow Keep. It was not a palace. It was a fortress shaped like a wound, high towers, narrow windows, arches like ribs. The air around it felt colder, and Nyxia realized the shadows here were not caused by the absence of light. They were a substance. Jerk opened the door. "This way." Inside, the keep was quiet, but not empty. Servants moved like ghosts. Guards watched from corners. Everywhere, carved into pillars and door frames, were runes like the ones in the dungeon. They brought her to a hall lined with banners. At the far end stood a man in black. For a moment, Nyxia could not breathe. He was taller than she remembered. His hair was still dark, but now it was tied back neatly. His face was clean, but the scars remained, pale lines that spoke of fire and chains. His eyes were still storm dark, but the violet gleam sat under them like embers, controlled, watching. Vaelithor stepped forward. Nyxia. She hated the way her name sounded in his mouth, like possession and prayer at once. Do not, she said. He stopped a few paces away. I do not touch what is not offered. Oryn looked up at Vaelithor. Are you the Lord? Yes, Vaelithor said. Oryn frowned. You look like a wolf that learned to stand. Nyxia gasped. Oryn. Vaelithor's mouth twitched, almost a smile. A bold cub. Nyxia stiffened at the word cub. What do you want from me? She asked. Vaelithor lifted a hand. A servant approached carrying parchment and a small obsidian knife. No, Nyxia said, nausea rising. This is a contract, Vaelithor replied. A contract, Nyxia repeated, bitter. A blood contract. You promised you would not touch me. I did not promise I would not bind you. I am not your prisoner. The syndicate has your name, Vaelithor said, voice turning sharp. The circle has your scent. The High Archon has hounds that can taste fear on the wind. If you walk out of my gate unbound, you will be hunted. Nyxia stared. What did you just say? Someone has already tried to scry you. I do not even own a mirror. Scrying does not require mirrors. It requires a thread. A thread like me. A thread like the night you were thrown into my cage. Nyxia anger flared. So this is about you, about what they did to you. This is about you, he said. They used you to control me. They will use you again. Then let them, I am tired. Vaelithor stepped closer until Nyxia could smell him. Smoke and cold metal, and something darker that made her pulse react before her mind could object. Do not say that in front of your child. Do not tell me what to say. Assign. Nyxia snatched the parchment, eyes scanning as words swam. Live in the keep. Accept his protection. Wear his mark. Present herself as his consort, even if it was false. Nyxia tore the parchment in half. To know. The hall went still. Mama, Oryn whispered. Vaelithor looked at the ripped paper, then at her. His face did not change, but the shadows at his feet rippled, as if reacting to his temper. Jerk moved a step forward, hand near his sword. Vaelithor lifted a finger, stopping him. His gaze returned to Nyxia. If you want to fight me, do it. If you want to hate me, hate me. But do not pretend your anger is stronger than your fear of losing him. Do not use my son against me. Then stop letting men in the street use him against you. Nyxia staggered as if struck, because it was true. Vaelithor gestured. Another parchment appeared, whole, unbroken. Magic, Nyxia whispered. I will give you food, safety, and a roof that does not leak, Vaelithor said. Your son will have tutors, healers, and guards who would die before they let a hand reach him. And in return, I become your ornament. In return, you become untouchable. Untouchable. My name will be your blade. Nyxia looked down at Oryn. He was watching Vaelithor, not with fear, but with curiosity that felt wrong in a child. Oryn whispered, "He smells like thunder." Nyxia swallowed. "Be quiet." "Sign," Vaelithor said again. "You want my blood. I want your consent written in the only language magic respects. And if I do not give it, then I will still protect you, but you will hate me more because it will be force." Nyxia trembled, then reached for the knife. Her finger pricked. Blood beaded bright against her skin. Vaelithor watched, jaw tight, as if the sight of her blood was both sacred and unbearable. Nyxia pressed her finger to the parchment. The paper drank the blood. A pulse of cold swept through her arm, then warmth spread through her chest, like a brand placed not on skin, but inside the ribs. Nyxia gasped. "It is done," Vaelithor said. A faint mark sat on her wrist, a crescent shadow. "You marked me. I bound you to my protection. And you bound me to you." "Ah, yes." That night Nyxia did not sleep. She listened for footsteps, for keys, for the scrape of claws on stone. Near midnight, she heard a soft knock. Nyxia stood, heart racing, and opened the door a crack. Vaelithor stood in the hallway alone. No guards, no servants. His eyes looked darker in the dim light. "What?" Nyxia whispered. "I did not come to claim anything. I came to warn you." "Warn me of what?" "Do not let him wander," Vaelithor said, gaze shifting toward the sleeping shape of Oryn. "He is a child. He is a child in a house soaked in blood magic. The keep has old corridors. Some lead to places I do not open anymore. Places like the dungeon. Worse." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because the night you were in my cage, I promised I would not let harm reach you if I could stop it. That was years ago." "It still counts," Vaelithor said, voice almost intimate. Nyxia swallowed. "Why did my scent help you?" "I do not know," he admitted. "I only know that when I smelled you, the beast inside me stopped trying to rip the world apart and started trying to listen." "Maybe you were never a beast." "Do not romanticize my darkness. You romanticize it yourself." Vaelithor leaned slightly closer, careful not to cross the threshold. "If you ever feel the mark burn, wake the child and hide. Do not hesitate." "Who will come?" "The ones who made me in that cage." "The alchemist," Nyxia whispered. "And others, he was not the highest hand. He was a tool." "Who holds the tool?" "The High Archon, and the circle of mages who bow to him." Nyxia felt her stomach twist. It sounded like a tale meant to scare children. But she had seen runes burn flesh, and she had heard a man turn into a beast. "You could have told me this before you forced me into a contract," Nyxia said. "Would you have believed me?" Vaelithor asked. Nyxia did not answer. "Sleep," he said. "You will need strength." "Why did you come for me now?" Nyxia asked, unable to stop herself. "Because someone tried to take you from the slum, and it made the beast inside me wake. It did not wake to kill. It woke to find you." "That is not love," Nyxia whispered. "No," he said. "Love comes after you have chosen each other more than once." "Then why am I here?" "Because I want the chance to choose you with my mind, not my hunger." Vaelithor left. Nyxia stood in the doorway long after the hall swallowed him, heart beating like it wanted to run. The next days were a strange captivity. Servants brought food that tasted of spices Nyxia had forgotten existed. Oryn ran through halls laughing, then grew quiet when shadows shifted on the walls. Vaelithor was everywhere and nowhere, a presence on balconies, in the training yard, in the library where his fingers traced old books as if knowledge could soothe old wounds. Sometimes Nyxia felt his gaze on her when she did not look. It made her skin warm, and it made her angry at herself. In the scullery, Nyxia scrubbed a pot out of habit. A maid tried to take it from her. "Lady, you do not need to." "Do not call me that." "But the mark." "It is a leash," Nyxia snapped. The maid lowered her voice. "It is a shield. People in this keep would kill for a mark like that. It means you are under his protection. It means you are the one thing he will burn the world for." "That is not a compliment," Nyxia muttered. "It can be," the maid whispered. That evening, Oryn came to Nyxia with soot on his hands. "Where were you?" "I found a door that breathes," Oryn said. Nyxia went cold. "Show me." Oryn shook his head. "It does not like you." "Do not play games," Nyxia said, grabbing his shoulders gently but firmly. Oryn's eyes widened, suddenly too bright. "It likes him." "Him." "The Wolf Lord," Oryn whispered. Nyxia pulled him into her arms, holding him too tight. "Do not wander," she begged. "Promise me." "I promise," Oryn sighed, like an old soul trapped in a small body. Nyxia did not believe promises anymore. The first attack came at dawn. Nyxia woke to horns and shouting. The mark on her wrist burned, not like fever, but like ice pressed into skin. "Hide," Vaelithor had said. She grabbed Oryn, wrapped him in a cloak, and shoved him into the wardrobe behind hanging clothes. "Mama, what is happening?" Oryn whispered. "Stay quiet," Nyxia said, forcing calm into her voice. Outside the window, dark shapes moved on the grounds. Men in gray cloaks vaulted the wall like spiders. They carried crossbows and blades that gleamed green. Poison, Nyxia thought. The keep erupted. Guards met the intruders. Steel rang. Magic flashed like silent lightning, blue and black, as if the air itself was being cut. A scream cut off. A crash shook the hall. Footsteps pounded, then shifted away, drawn toward the center like prey to a predator. Nyxia stayed hidden until her legs cramped. When she finally opened the wardrobe, the hallway smelled of smoke and blood. A servant ran past, face white. "He is back." "Who?" Nyxia demanded. "Lord Vaelithor. He is wounded." Nyxia ran, not knowing why she ran, only knowing that some thread inside her had snapped tight. She found him in his private chamber. Vaelithor stood in the middle of the room, cloak torn, shirt soaked. Blood dripped from his shoulder and down his arm, dark against pale scars. Jerk was there holding a vial. Later, Vaelithor snarled, waving it away. Nyxia entered. Both men turned. Vaelithor's eyes locked on hers, and something fierce softened in them for a heartbeat. "You should have stayed hidden." "I did," Nyxia said, voice shaking. "Good," Vaelithor said, relief and anger tangled together. "Sit down," Nyxia ordered. "I am not a child. You are bleeding like a man, so sit down like one." Vaelithor stared at her as if surprised by her boldness, then obeyed. He sat on the edge of a chair, posture tense, as if being cared for was more painful than the wound. Nyxia reached for cloth. Jerk moved to help. "Leave," Nyxia said. "My lord," Jerk began. "Go, Jerk," Vaelithor said without taking his eyes off Nyxia. Jerk left, closing the door. Nyxia's hands trembled as she pressed cloth to Vaelithor's shoulder. He inhaled sharply. "Does it hurt?" Nyxia asked. "Yes," Vaelithor said, voice tight. "Then stop pretending it does not." "It is poison," he said. Nyxia froze. "What?" The bolt was tipped. The syndicate does not waste poison on common kills. This was meant to slow me. "Why?" Nyxia demanded. "Because someone wants you, and they know they cannot take you unless I fall." "I am not a prize," Nyxia snapped. "Tell that to men who trade lives like coins," Vaelithor replied. She tied the bandage tight. Vaelithor watched her hands. "You did not run," he said. "I am not a coward." "No, you are not," he said, voice softer, and the softness scared her more than his coldness. Vaelithor reached toward a desk where an obsidian slate lay, black as a cut in the world. "What is that?" Nyxia asked. "A message stone. I use it to speak with allies." He pressed a finger to it. "Report." The slate whispered back in a voice that was not quite human. "Perimeter breached at dawn. 2 captured, 1 dead by his own poison." "Names," Vaelithor said. "Syndicate knives, also marks of the circle." Nyxia felt cold spread through her chest. "So they are coming." Vaelithor pushed himself up too fast, dizziness hitting him, and he gripped the bedpost. Nyxia moved without thinking. She stepped toward him. He caught her wrist, not hard, but firm. The mark warmed under his fingers, and Nyxia felt the contact like lightning under skin. "Do not," Vaelithor whispered. "Do not what?" "Do not make me forget my restraint." Nyxia breath caught. She should have pulled away. Instead she stayed, because his voice was raw, because for a heartbeat she felt desired in a way that was not cheap or cruel. "Let go," she whispered. Vaelithor released her immediately, as if her words were law. A knock sounded. Jerk entered with 2 guards carrying more vials and bandages. "The prisoners will not speak," Jerk said, "but we found a token." He held up a small metal disc. "That is not syndicate," Vaelithor said. "It is the circle, their mark hidden under acid." Nyxia stared at the disc, the shape of it, the chill it seemed to carry. Vaelithor's voice went colder. "The High Archon has sent scouts. They will circle, waiting for weakness." "There is also talk of a brother," Jerk added. Vaelithor's eyes flickered. "Oryn. He is on his way." Nyxia stared at Vaelithor. "You have family." "Ah, yes. And you did not tell me." "I did not bring you here to meet my family," Vaelithor said. "I brought you here to keep you alive." "You do not get to decide what I meet," Nyxia shot back. Vaelithor stared at her, then said something that startled her more than any threat. "You are right." Jerk left with the guards. Nyxia remained standing in the silence, listening to Vaelithor breathing, to her own heart, to the faint vibration in the walls like the keep itself was humming. "What is that sound?" she asked. "The wards," Vaelithor said. "They are hungry when enemies come close." "Is that why the mark burns?" "It is connected." "Am I safe?" Nyxia asked, voice smaller than she wanted. "With me, yes." "And without you?" "Without me, you are a story they will tell as a warning." The blunt truth sliced through her. The next morning, Nyxia entered Vaelithor's chamber to check his fever. He was awake, sitting at the desk, working the obsidian slate with grim focus, as if rest was an enemy. "You should be in bed," Nyxia said. "I will sleep when they are dead." "That is not a plan. That is a suicide note." "Do not speak to me like a wife." "Then stop acting like a husband," Nyxia snapped, and instantly regretted it. Vaelithor stood and moved toward her slowly. "You want me to stop," he said. "Ah, yes." "Then stop looking at me like you are curious what it would feel like to be claimed." "I am not," Nyxia lied, and the lie tasted like smoke. Vaelithor stopped a breath away. "I am starving," he said. "For what?" "For peace, for a future that is not blood, for you." Nyxia felt heat rise, breath shorten. Vaelithor lifted his hand toward her cheek and stopped inches away. "If I touch you, I will not want to stop." Then do not touch me, Nyxia whispered. Vaelithor's hand dropped. He turned away sharply, and the sudden distance felt like a door slamming inside her. Later, in the scullery, Nyxia tried to focus on something normal, unpacking supplies, arranging herbs, pretending this was an ordinary house and not a fortress built on secrets. Vaelithor appeared, leaning against the counter as if he had followed without meaning to. "Do you ever let me breathe?" Nyxia demanded. "I could ask you the same," he replied. "You have servants. They fear me. Everyone fears you." "Do you?" Vaelithor asked. Nyxia hesitated. Yes. Good. Good. Fear keeps you alive. You do not want me alive. You want me obedient." "I want you alive enough to choose," he said. "I cannot force desire. I can only force proximity." "That is still a cage." "And yet you survived my first cage." "Do you remember everything from that night?" Nyxia asked, voice unsteady. "I remember your heartbeat," Vaelithor said. "I remember the way you tried to be brave and failed, then tried again. I remember the smell of your tears." "Stop," Nyxia whispered. "Why?" "Because it makes you feel. Because it makes me want to forgive you." "Do not forgive me yet." "Why?" "Because I have not told you the worst thing." Nyxia went cold. "What worst thing?" "I did not find you by chance." Vaelithor's voice was low. "I have been watching you for months." Nyxia stepped back as if slapped. "You." "I needed to know if you were safe." "That is stalking." "Yes," he said, not denying it, not softening it. "And you only came when my debt was sold." "I came when the threat became immediate." "You could have helped earlier." "If I had touched your life too soon, I would have painted a target on you," he said. "You were hidden in poverty. It is a strange mercy." "Mercy," Nyxia repeated, bitter. Oryn entered quietly, holding his toy wolf. He looked at Vaelithor. "Did you fight the bad men?" "Yes," Vaelithor said, lowering himself slightly as if trying not to loom. "Did you win?" "For now." "Bad men come back," Oryn said calmly. Nyxia stared at her son. "What did you say?" Oryn looked up at her with eyes too bright, and the shadows in the corner of the scullery shifted as if listening. "I said they come back," Oryn repeated. "They always come back when the Wolf Lord starts to care." Nyxia felt her blood turn to ice. Vaelithor went still. His gaze locked onto Oryn, not with anger, but with something sharper, something like recognition that made the air feel thinner. Oryn tilted his head, almost curious. "Do you hear them too?" he asked. Nyxia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Vaelithor's voice dropped to a whisper that did not feel meant for a child or for anyone. "Where did you learn that word, little one?" Oryn blinked. The door that breathes told me. Nyxia stared at her son as the shadows in the corner shifted again. Not like a candle flicker, but like a living thing adjusting its posture. "What door?" she asked, keeping her voice steady because children listened to tremors even when they did not understand words. Oryn hugged his toy wolf to his chest. "The one that breathes. It makes a sound like the keep is sleeping. It told me bad men come back when the Wolf Lord starts to care." Vaelithor went very still. His eyes stayed on Oryn, but his attention seemed to expand, as if he was also listening to the walls, the floor, the old bones of the keep. "Where is this door?" he asked. Oryn hesitated, then pointed with a small soot-stained finger. "Down, past the place that smells like cold water and old iron." Nyxia felt her stomach drop. "The dungeon." Vaelithor did not deny it. He turned his gaze to Nyxia, and the look on his face was not anger. It was fear wearing armor. "You did not tell him stories about breathing doors," he said. Nyxia shook her head. "I do not tell him stories at all. I tell him to stay alive." Vaelithor stood slowly, as if sudden movement might startle something unseen. "Oryn," he said, voice quiet but firm, "you will not go near any hidden doors again. Do you understand?" Oryn frowned. "But it likes me." Vaelithor knelt, bringing his eyes level with the child. "That is why you will not go. Things that like children do not always like them kindly." Oryn blinked, then nodded once, too solemn for his age. Nyxia watched Vaelithor with a tightness in her chest that felt like anger and gratitude tangled together, because he was not speaking to Oryn like a threat. He was speaking like a father who knew exactly what the world did to innocent things. Vaelithor rose and looked at Nyxia again. "He stays with you at all times. If you cannot watch him, you call a guard. If you are proud, swallow it." Nyxia bristled. "Do not talk to me like I am careless." "I am not accusing you," Vaelithor said. "I am begging you in the only language I know that works." Nyxia opened her mouth, ready to answer with sharpness, then stopped when she saw the faint tremor in his hand. He hid it quickly, but she had seen it. Poison and sleeplessness were pulling him thin. Jerk entered the scullery, with a folded message in his hand. "My lord, a rider from the eastern ridge. The scouts saw something in the fog." Vaelithor took the message and read it, eyes narrowing. "Hellhounds," he said. Nyxia felt cold run down her spine. "You said they smell bloodlines." "They do," Vaelithor replied, and his gaze flicked to Oryn again. Then he folded the message and slipped it into his sleeve like it was a blade he did not want visible. Oryn looked up at Vaelithor. "Are hellhounds like wolves?" Vaelithor's expression tightened. "They are like hunger given teeth." Nyxia stepped between Vaelithor and her son without thinking. "If they come here, you will stop them." Vaelithor looked at her with something like pain. I will, but you must listen. When the time comes, you will not argue with me. Nyxia lifted her chin. I will argue with you until I am dead. Vaelithor stared at her, and for a heartbeat, the violet embers in his eyes flared as if he was trying not to smile. That is exactly what makes you dangerous, he murmured, then turned to Jerk. Double the wards. No one leaves the grounds, and bring the healer, not for me, for the child. Nyxia snapped. My child is fine. Vaelithor did not look away from Jerk. Bring the healer. Jerk bowed and left. Nyxia grabbed Vaelithor's arm, not gentle. You do not get to order a healer for my son like he is your property. Vaelithor did not pull away. His gaze dropped to her fingers on his sleeve. You said he is your son, he replied quietly. I am not disputing that. I am preparing for the possibility that the world will. Nyxia felt heat rise in her throat. What does that mean? Vaelithor met her eyes. It means the circle does not hunt people for sport. They hunt bloodlines, gifts, and anything that can become a weapon. And the way he speaks about doors that breathe tells me he can hear what most cannot. Nyxia released Vaelithor's arm and forced herself to breathe. He is just a child. Vaelithor's voice softened. Yes, that is why they will come. That night, Nyxia sat beside Oryn's bed and watched his lashes flutter as he slept. The room was warm, the hearth steady, the curtains thick, and still she felt the keep around her like a giant animal holding its breath. The mark on her wrist pulsed once, faintly warm, like a warning whispered through skin. Nyxia rose and went to the door, opening it just a crack. Vaelithor stood there as if he had been summoned by her fear. His hair was loose tonight, falling dark over his shoulders. The sight of him like that, unarmored and quiet, made Nyxia's chest tighten in a way she hated. What is it? He asked. Nyxia tried to make her voice neutral. You ordered a healer. Ah, yes. Why? Vaelithor did not answer immediately. He looked past her into the room to the small shape sleeping. Because the last time the circle wanted to control me, they used you as a lever, he said. This time they will use him. Nyxia swallowed. You keep talking like you know what they want. I do, Vaelithor said, because I escaped their cage with my body, but not with all my secrets. Nyxia stared at him. What secrets? Vaelithor's eyes went distant. The circle does not just bind monsters. They breed them. They carve blood into new shapes. They tried to turn me into an obedient titan. Nyxia felt sick. And did they? Vaelithor looked back at her, and the answer sat in his face like a scar. They failed to make me obedient. They succeeded in making me dangerous. Nyxia's voice came out smaller. And me, why did my scent help you? Vaelithor hesitated, then stepped closer, still staying outside the threshold like it was a line he respected. "Because you were not supposed to be there," he said. "You were not chosen from their lists. You were not prepared. You were a living thing thrown into a ritual like a stone thrown into still water." The ripples reached me. Nyxia frowned. "That is not an answer." "It is the only one I have," Vaelithor said, and his voice roughened. "But I will tell you what my body believes, even if my mind cannot prove it. My beast smelled you and recognized home." Nyxia felt heat bloom under her skin. "Home," she repeated, disbelieving. Vaelithor's gaze dropped to her mouth and lifted again with visible restraint. "Ah, yes." Nyxia should have shut the door then. Instead, she whispered, "If your beast thinks I am home, why did you make a contract? Why not just ask?" Vaelithor gave a short, humorless laugh. "Because I do not know how to ask for anything without offering a blade in the same hand. It is what they taught me." Nyxia stared at him, then at his hands, scarred and steady. "You could learn." Vaelithor's eyes sharpened. "I am trying." Nyxia looked back into the room at Oryn, then returned her gaze to Vaelithor. "What is the worst thing you have not told me yet? You said there was worse." Vaelithor's face tightened. "Not tonight." "Tell me." "Nyxia," he said, voice low. "If I say it, you will think I have trapped you from the beginning, and you will not be wrong." Nyxia's heart thudded. "Say it anyway." Vaelithor held her gaze for a long moment, then exhaled slowly. "The circle did not only use you to test my restraint. They used you to make sure I would never fully escape them." Nyxia went cold. "How?" Vaelithor spoke like each word scraped his throat. "They stole things from that night. Not just blood from me, not just fear from you. They stole fragments, a breath, a tear, a drop of skin. Enough to weave a thread between you and me that they could tug." Nyxia pressed her fingers to her mouth, nausea rising. "That is impossible." "It is ritual science," Vaelithor said. "The alchemist is not a man with bottles. He is a butcher with mathematics." Nyxia's voice shook. "So you are saying they can pull me like a string, and you will follow?" Vaelithor's eyes darkened. "Ah, yes." Nyxia stared at him, anger igniting in fear. "Then you bringing me here was not protection. It was your own need." Vaelithor flinched as if struck. "It was both," he said, and his voice sharpened. "I am not pretending I am pure. But listen. I can shield you inside these walls. I can break their tug when I see it. I cannot do that if you are alone in the slum waiting for their hands." Nyxia swallowed, throat tight. "And Oryn." Vaelithor's gaze shifted to the child again. "That is what I am trying to understand." Nyxia felt her temper rise. "He is mine." Vaelithor looked back at her, and the look on his face was not possessive. It was desperate. I am not trying to steal him, Nyxia. I am trying to keep him from becoming a weapon. Nyxia closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them. Go rest, she said. Vaelithor did not move. You first, he murmured. You look like you have not slept since you walked through my gate. Nyxia laughed quietly. Because I have not. Vaelithor stepped back, as if accepting her boundary was a victory he had to practice. If the mark burns, he said, you do not hesitate. Nyxia nodded once. Vaelithor turned away, and his cloak moved like a living shadow, swallowing him down the corridor. 2 days later, Oryn arrived. Nyxia saw him first in the courtyard, a tall man stepping through the gate with rain on his shoulders and a sword at his side. He looked like Vaelithor in the bones, the same sharp structure, the same storm-dark eyes, but where Vaelithor carried cold like a crown, Oryn carried it like a tool. His gaze swept the keep with the quick precision of someone who expected attack at any moment. Vaelithor met him halfway. Brother. Oryn clasped Vaelithor's forearm, then pulled him closer in a rough embrace that lasted only a breath. You look like death that refuses to lie down, Oryn said. Vaelithor's voice was dry. That is a family trait. Oryn's eyes slid past Vaelithor to Nyxia, standing under the archway with Oryn at her side. So this is her, Oryn said. Nyxia stiffened. So this is the brother, she replied before she could stop herself. Oryn's mouth twitched. She bites good, we need bite. Vaelithor looked at Nyxia with a flicker of warning, then returned his gaze to Oryn. The circle is near. I saw their fog, Oryn said, and I saw something else. Their hunters are not alone. Vaelithor's eyes narrowed. Hellhounds. Oryn nodded. And a mage who smells like the old cage. Nyxia felt her stomach clench. The alchemist. Oryn looked at her, and his gaze sharpened like he was trying to read her bones. You have seen him. Yes, Nyxia said, and her voice went hoarse. He threw me into your brother's cage like it was entertainment. Oryn's jaw tightened. He turned to Vaelithor. We end this. Vaelithor's voice went low. We will. That evening Vaelithor summoned Nyxia to the library. She hesitated at the door, then walked in with her chin lifted because fear in this keep felt like blood in water. Vaelithor stood by the window, looking out at the darkening forest. Oryn leaned against a table with a map spread beneath his hands. Jerk stood near the shelves, watchful. Vaelithor turned when Nyxia entered. I sit. Nyxia did not. Tell me why I am here. Vaelithor did not waste words. We may need to move you and the child. Nyxia's heart jumped. No. Oryn lifted an eyebrow. She says no to everything, Vaelithor, How do you live with this? Vaelithor did not look away from Nyxia. It is not a burden. It is a relief. She reminds me I am not a god. Nyxia felt heat rise in her face and hated herself for it. Where would you move us? She asked. Oryn tapped the map. A sanctuary in the twilight forest. Old wards, hidden paths. The circle will struggle to find it. Nyxia stared. You want me to hide like a frightened animal. I want you alive, Vaelithor said. And you, Nyxia demanded. You stay and fight. Ah, yes. Nyxia felt something raw tear inside her. Then no. Vaelithor's eyes hardened. Nyxia, this is not a negotiation. Nyxia stepped closer. I did not sign a contract to be thrown out when danger comes. I signed because you said your name would be my blade. You do not get to keep the blade and give me the sheath. Oryn let out a low whistle. That was almost poetry. Vaelithor did not smile. If you stay, they will use you against me. They already are, Nyxia shot back. You said they can tug the thread. If I run into the forest, you will still follow if they pull. Vaelithor went still. Oryn's gaze sharpened. What thread? Vaelithor looked at Oryn. Later. Nyxia held her ground. I will not leave you, she said, voice shaking. Not because I love you, not because I trust you. Because if I leave, you will become the beast again, and there will be nothing human left to stop it. The words hung in the air like a blade thrown. Vaelithor's face softened for a heartbeat, then hardened again. You think you can control me. Nyxia swallowed. I think you want me to try. A silence. Then Vaelithor turned away, jaw clenched. Oryn stepped forward, voice quieter. Brother, you have made a home here, even if you refuse to name it. Do not break it by forcing her again. Vaelithor's eyes closed for a moment. Jerk, he said. My lord. Bring the healer, now. Jerk left. Nyxia frowned. Why are you calling a healer again? Vaelithor looked at her with something like resignation. Because we are out of time, and I need to know the truth I have been pretending not to see. Nyxia's stomach tightened. What truth? Vaelithor's gaze shifted to the doorway. Oryn. Nyxia turned and saw her son standing there, barefoot, eyes wide. How long have you been listening? Nyxia asked. Oryn shrugged. Long. Nyxia wanted to scold him, but the mark on her wrist warmed sharply, and her instincts screamed that this was not the moment for discipline. Vaelithor crouched. Come here, little one. Oryn walked toward him without fear, as if drawn by something he did not understand. Oryn watched with a tension in his shoulders that did not match his calm face. The healer arrived, an older woman with gray hair braided tight and hands stained with herbs. She bowed once to Vaelithor, then went to Oryn, lifting his chin gently, peering into his eyes. The healer inhaled slowly, then stiffened. "My lord," she whispered. Vaelithor's voice was steady. "I say it." The healer looked at Nyxia with pity. "The child carries shadow blood." Nyxia felt the world tilt. "No." The healer continued, voice trembling. "It is old, it is noble, it is yours." Nyxia turned to Vaelithor. "No, that is impossible." Vaelithor did not move, but Nyxia saw something crack behind his composure. 5 years, he murmured, "It matches." Nyxia shook her head violently. "I have never lain with you. I have never even been alone with you outside a cage." Sorin cursed under his breath. Vaelithor's voice went low, deadly. "The circle." Nyxia pressed her hands to her temples, as if she could hold her mind together by force. "No, no, Oryn is mine." Vaelithor looked at her, and his gaze held no triumph, only grief. "He is yours, Nyxia. Nothing changes that, but he is also my blood, which means the circle did not just tug a thread, they planted it." Nyxia could not breathe. The healer stepped back, as if afraid of the air. "The child is beginning to wake," she whispered. "It will happen soon." "What will happen?" Nyxia demanded. The healer's voice shook. "The blood will call itself. When threatened, it will answer. If it answers without guidance, it can harm him." Nyxia dropped to her knees in front of Oryn and grabbed his shoulders. "Oryn, do you feel strange? Do you feel sick?" Oryn blinked slowly. "I feel like my skin is too small." Nyxia felt tears rise. Vaelithor stepped closer, then stopped, as if asking permission with his stillness. "May I?" he asked. Nyxia did not want to say yes. She did not want to say anything that made this real. But Oryn looked at her with a fear that finally matched his age. "Mama," he whispered, "the door is calling me." Nyxia's voice broke. "Help him." Vaelithor moved then, fast but careful. He knelt behind Oryn and placed a hand lightly on the child's back. "Breathe, cub," Vaelithor said softly. "Do not fight it. Listen to me." Oryn's body trembled. Nyxia felt the mark on her wrist flare warm, and then cold, as if it was being pulled from both ends. Sorin stepped to the window, scanning the darkening grounds. "They are here," he said quietly. A horn sounded outside, distant but clear. Then another. The wards hummed, hungry. Oryn's eyes widened. His pupils seemed to stretch, darkening. Shadows in the corners leaned toward him. Nyxia grabbed Oryn tighter. "No, stay with me." Vaelithor's voice deepened, a thread of command in it. "Stay with me, son." The word son hit Nyxia like a blow. Oryn gasped, and then the air around him thickened. His small body jerked, as if tugged by invisible hands. For a heartbeat, Nyxia thought she was watching her child die. Then Oryn's shape shifted. Not into something monstrous, not into a nightmare, but into a small creature made of shadow and soft fur. A cub with ears that twitched and eyes that glowed faintly violet. He looked fragile and fierce at once, like a storm trapped in a child's chest. Nyxia made a sound that was half sob, half scream. Vaelithor hands steadied the cub gently. Easy, cub, breathe. Feel your paws, feel the floor, you are safe. The cub trembled, then pressed into Vaelithor's palm, as if recognizing a scent older than memory. Nyxia stared, tears streaming. Oryn. The cub lifted its head. Then, slowly, the shape flowed back into her son's small body. He sagged into Vaelithor's arms, exhausted. "Mama," Oryn whispered, voice shaky. "I did not mean to." Nyxia grabbed him and held him so tight she feared she would hurt him. "You did not do anything wrong," she sobbed. "You did nothing wrong." Vaelithor stood, his expression carved from cold. "Sauron," he said, "get the family to the inner hall. Jerk will secure the eastern wing. I will handle what comes." Nyxia looked up at him. "No, you said do not hesitate. I will not. I am staying with you." Vaelithor's eyes flashed. "If you stay near me, they will aim at you." Nyxia wiped her face with shaking hands. "Then let them aim. I am tired of being a lever." Sauron cursed again, then moved, ushering servants and guards into motion with sharp commands. The keep woke like a creature rousing for war. Vaelithor turned to Nyxia, voice lower. "If I lose control, you run." Nyxia shook her head. "If you lose control, I will bring you back. You said your beast listens to me." Vaelithor stared at her, and for a heartbeat the feral hunger in him softened into something almost tender. "Then do not let your fear make you cruel," he murmured. "Speak to me like I am still a man." Nyxia swallowed. "I will." The first hellhound hit the outer ward like a fist. A howl tore through the night, too deep to be a normal animal, too clever to be a simple beast. The wards flared blue-black against the windows, and the air tasted like iron. Vaelithor took a cloak from the chair and draped it over his shoulders, then picked up a blade that looked like it had never known rust. "Stay behind me," he told Nyxia. Nyxia gripped Oryn's hand. "Do not tell me where to stand," she whispered. "Just tell me what to do." Vaelithor looked at her, then nodded once. "When I say run, you run. When I say hide, you hide. When I say hold on, you hold on to your son's life and mine." Nyxia's throat tightened. "Fine." They moved through corridors toward the central hall where the wards were thickest. Guards took positions. Torches burned with steady flame despite the wind that seemed to seep through stone. Then the fog came. It slid under doors, seeped through cracks, a pale gray breath that carried the smell of chemicals and old fear. Nyxia stiffened. That smell. Vaelithor's voice went low. Zmalegger. Oryn appeared from a side corridor, blade drawn. He is here. Vaelithor's eyes narrowed. He is close enough to taste my blood. A laugh echoed through the hall, soft and amused. Vaelithor, always dramatic. Nyxia's stomach clenched at the sound. It was the alchemist voice, the same calm cruelty, the same gentle tone that made promises feel like knives. The fog thickened, and a figure emerged from it as if the mist gave birth. Malager walked into the hall without fear, wearing a coat too clean for a battlefield, gloves too white for a butcher. Behind him, shapes moved, hounds with eyes like pits and teeth that glimmered green. Nyxia felt Oryn squeeze her hand. "Mama," he whispered, "they smell me." Malager smiled when he saw Nyxia. "There you are, my little thread." Nyxia blood turned to ice. "Do not call me that." Malager's gaze slid to Oryn, and his smile widened. "And the result? I always wondered if the seed would take." Nyxia's lungs burned. "A seed." Vaelithor moved forward like a storm. "You did not touch her," Vaelithor said, voice vibrating with restrained violence. "If you claim you did, I will tear your tongue out first." Malager chuckled. So possessive. "No, I did not touch her. You did, with your presence, with your hunger, with your blood singing against her fear. I only translated it into a child." Nyxia stumbled as if struck. "You made my son." "I made the formula," Malager corrected, and his eyes gleamed. "You made the love needed for it to survive." Nyxia's voice shook with rage. "There was no love, there was terror." Malager shrugged lightly. "Terror is a cousin of devotion. Both make strong bonds." Vaelithor's blade lifted. "You will die." Malager sighed. "I would prefer not, but the High Archon has waited long enough for his obedient titan. Give me the woman and the child, Vaelithor. Give me the thread and the knot. I will leave you your keep and your pride." Nyxia felt Vaelithor shift in front of her, a protective wall. "No," Vaelithor said. Malager tilted his head. "Then you choose war." Oryn stepped forward, blade ready. "We chose war the moment you built a cage," he said. Malager's smile thinned. "Ah, the brother, always loyal, always late." The hounds moved, padding forward like smoke made solid. Vaelithor's voice dropped to Nyxia, without turning his head. "Hold Oryn. Close your eyes if you have to. Do not faint. I need you awake." Nyxia forced herself to breathe. "I am awake." The first hound lunged. Vaelithor moved with lethal grace, blade cutting through the fog, striking the creature at the throat. Black blood sprayed, and the wards hissed as if tasting it. The hound collapsed, then dissolved into shadow. Another lunged, teeth snapping. Oryn met it with his own blade, and the hall filled with the sound of steel meeting bone that was not bone. Malagar raised one gloved hand, and the fog thickened into chains of mist that whipped toward Vaelithor. Blood magic, Vaelithor snarled. The chains wrapped around Vaelithor's arm, tightening. The runes on the walls flared in response, fighting the intrusion, and the air felt like it was being pulled apart. Nyxia's wrist burned suddenly, not warm but scalding cold. Vaelithor gasped, and for a heartbeat his eyes went unfocused, as if something inside him was being yanked by an invisible hook. Malagar's voice turned gentle. "There it is, the tug, the thread. Do you feel it, Nyxia? Do you feel your mark singing?" Nyxia clutched her wrist, teeth clenched. "Oh, stop it." "I cannot," Malagar said. "The High Archon holds the other end." Vaelithor's body jerked, and Nyxia saw it clearly now. He was not only fighting hounds, he was fighting his own blood being commanded. Oryn shouted, "The brother!" Vaelithor growled, the sound deepening into something not fully human. Nyxia felt fear spike, then something else rise under it, something stubborn and hot. "Vaelithor," she said, loud enough that her voice cut through the hall. His head snapped toward her, eyes stormed dark. "Look at me," Nyxia demanded. Vaelithor stared at her. "You promised in the cage," she said, voice shaking but strong. "You promised you would not let them break you with me. Do not let them do it with our child." Malagar laughed softly. "Our child, she claims him already, how sweet." Nyxia ignored him. She stepped forward, daring the danger, and put her palm against Vaelithor's chest through his cloak. Vaelithor shuddered, as if her touch was both comfort and torture. "Breathe," she whispered, "not like a beast, like a man. Like the one who stood between me and the bars when you could have eaten me and did not." Vaelithor's jaw clenched. The violet in his eyes flickered, then steadied. The chains of fog tightened again, and Vaelithor's body bent under the pull. Malagar's eyes narrowed. "Impressive. The bond is stronger than I calculated." Nyxia pressed closer to Vaelithor, not seductive, not soft, but fearless in a way that felt almost reckless. "Then calculate this," Nyxia said, and she lifted her marked wrist toward Malagar. "This mark binds me to his protection. It means you cannot take me without coming through him. So if you tug him too, and if you tug him, you are standing close enough to die." Malagar smiled slowly. "Clever girl, but you forget, I do not need to take you alive." He flicked his fingers. A thin blade of mist shot toward Nyxia's throat. Vaelithor moved faster than thought. He shoved Nyxia back and took the strike across his shoulder. The fog blade cut deep, black blood spilling. Vaelithor staggered, and the beast inside him surged, not as hunger but as rage. The shadows in the hall thickened. The torches flickered. Oryn screamed. No. The sound was small, but it cracked something in the air. Nyxia saw shadows gather around Oryn like protective wings. His eyes flashed violet. Nyxia grabbed him. Oryn, no, stay with me. Oryn's voice broke. They hurt him. Vaelithor straightened slowly. He looked at his blood on the floor, then at Malagar, and the smile that touched his mouth was not human. Malagar took a step back for the first time. Ah, there you are, Vaelithor, the Titan. Vaelithor's voice was low, and it carried through the hall like thunder. You wanted obedient, you will get the opposite. Vaelithor's body shifted. Not fully into a beast of nightmares, not into a thing made only of claws, but into something larger than a man, shadow folding around him like armor, eyes glowing violet like coals under ash. His hands lengthened, not grotesque, but unmistakably dangerous. The air itself seemed to bow away from him. Nyxia felt fear, yes, but she also felt something else, a fierce relief. He is fighting for us, she thought, not for vengeance, for us. Oryn moved to Nyxia's side, blade ready. Do not flinch, he murmured. If you flinch, the hounds will smell it. Nyxia swallowed. I am not flinching. Vaelithor lunged. He crossed the hall in a blur of shadow and struck Malagar with a force that shattered the fog chains. Malagar flew back, crashing into a pillar. The pillar cracked. Malagar coughed, and for the first time his calm slipped. You are stronger than the High Archon predicted. Vaelithor grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Tell me who holds the other end, Vaelithor snarled. Malagar laughed weakly. You think killing me breaks a system. I am a tool, Vaelithor. I was always a tool. Vaelithor's claws tightened. Malagar's face reddened. Nyxia's wrist burned again, and she felt it like a pulse through bone. Vaelithor, she called. He did not look back. Nyxia stepped forward anyway, forcing herself into the edge of danger. Vaelithor, look at me. His head turned slightly, just enough. Do not become their story, Nyxia said, voice raw. Do not become the monster they invented so they can justify what they did. If you kill him as a man choosing, not as a beast obeying rage. Vaelithor's eyes flickered. His grip loosened a fraction. Malagar wheezed and smiled, even now. She is the leash and the key. Nyxia trembled with fury. I am not a leash. Malagar's eyes slid to Oryn. Then prove it. Choose. Save the man or save the child. Nyxia's heart stopped. Oryn stumbled, eyes widening. A hellhound that had been circling low and silent lunged toward him, teeth aimed for the small throat. Nyxia screamed. Oryn. Oryn moved, too far, too slow. Nyxia threw herself over her son without thinking, arms wrapping him like a shield. A shadow slammed into the hound midair. Vaelithor. He released Malagar and crossed the hall in a heartbeat, claws ripping the hound apart before its teeth could touch. Nyxia held Oryn tight, shaking. Vaelithor stood over them, breathing hard. The beast form around him wavered, held at bay by his will. Malagar staggered upright, blood on his lips, eyes bright with calculation. "You chose the child," he said, "predictable. That is why the High Archon will win. A father's weakness is always a child." Vaelithor's voice vibrated. "He is not my weakness. He is my reason." Malagar laughed, then raised both hands. The fog surged into a circle around him, and the runes on the wall hissed as if burned by acid. "A gate," Oryn snapped. "He is opening a gate." Vaelithor's eyes narrowed. "Not here." Nyxia's wrist burned so sharply she gasped. The mark pulsed like a heartbeat. Vaelithor looked at it, then at Nyxia. "The contract," he said. Nyxia stared. "What?" Vaelithor moved close, still in that half-shadow form, but his voice was suddenly clear, focused. "When you signed, you thought it was a leash. It is not. It is a mirror." Nyxia swallowed. "I do not understand." Vaelithor gripped her wrist gently, careful not to hurt. "The mark does not only pull you to me. It pulls what hunts you into my sight. It turns their scrying back on them. It shows me the line. It gives me a path." Nyxia stared at him. "You built a trap." Vaelithor's eyes held hers. "I built a shield that bites." Malagar hissed, hearing the change in the air. "No, that is not in my notes." Vaelithor turned his head, eyes blazing. "Because you never understood her. You thought she was a thread. She is a blade." Nyxia felt breath catch. The words should have felt like flattery. Instead, they felt like recognition, like he was seeing her as more than a victim for the first time. Vaelithor raised his hand toward the fog gate Malagar was opening. Nyxia's mark flared, and she felt something in the air align, like the world snapping into focus. Vaelithor whispered a word that sounded older than the keep. The fog gate shuddered, then collapsed inward like a lung exhaling. Malagar staggered. "What did you do?" Malagar spat. Vaelithor stepped forward. "I followed your line back to the hand that holds it." Malagar's eyes widened with real fear now. "You cannot reach him. The High Archon is protected by 100 wards." Vaelithor's voice was calm, and it was terrifying. "Then I will tear through 100 wards." Oryn moved beside Vaelithor. "We do it together, brother." Malagar tried to run. Vaelithor did not chase like a beast. He moved like an executioner choosing. He struck once. Malagar fell hard, blood blooming dark against stone. Nyxia flinched, then steadied herself. Malagar coughed, eyes glassy, and he looked at Nyxia with a strange softness. "You never knew, did you?" he whispered, He thinks he chose you, but the cage chose you both." Nyxia leaned closer, voice shaking with hate. "What did you do to me?" Malagar smiled faintly. "I did not make you love. I only made love useful." Then his eyes rolled back, and he went still. The hall fell quiet except for distant snarls fading, as the remaining hounds dissolved without their mage anchor. Nyxia did not relax. She could not. Her body felt like it had been held over a cliff and only now realized how close it came to falling. Oryn wiped his blade and looked at Vaelithor. "Is he dead?" Vaelithor stared at Malagar's body for a moment, then turned away, shadow form ebbing back into his human shape like a tide receding. His shoulders sagged slightly, as if the fight had drained something old. "Not enough," Vaelithor said. Nyxia hugged Oryn tighter. "What do you mean, not enough?" Vaelithor gaze fixed on the far end of the hall, where the fog had been. "The High Archon is still there. He still has Hellhounds. He still has the Circle." Oryn nodded. "Then we cut the head." Vaelithor turned to Nyxia, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "You and Oryn go to the sanctuary now," he said. Nyxia shook her head immediately. "No." Vaelithor's voice sharpened. "Nyxia." Nyxia stepped closer until she was within the space that felt dangerous, because it was intimate. "Listen to me. You said love comes after you choose each other more than once. So choose me now. Choose to come back alive so you can have a future to choose again. Do not ask me to choose between killing him and guarding you in the same breath." Vaelithor stared at her, and for a moment he looked like a man standing at the edge of something softer than war and not knowing how to step onto it. Oryn exhaled slowly. "She is right, Vaelithor. Do not be proud. Send them." Vaelithor closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. "Jerk," he called. Jerk appeared from the shadows, as if he had never left. "Take them to the sanctuary. Guards, now, and if any of you die, haunt me properly." Jerk bowed, then looked at Nyxia. "Come, my lady." Nyxia flinched at the title, then swallowed it down. Oryn clung to her hand, eyes wide. "Mama, will he come?" Nyxia looked at Vaelithor. He stood very still, as if motion might crack him. "He will come," Nyxia told her son, then looked back at Vaelithor. "You will come." Vaelithor's voice was rough. "I will." Nyxia hesitated, then did something she had avoided since the dungeon. She reached up and touched Vaelithor's cheek, just for a heartbeat. "Do not die," she whispered. Vaelithor's eyes closed under her touch, as if he had been starving for that permission. "Do not let fear make you cruel," he echoed softly. "Keep the child close." Nyxia nodded, then turned away before she could change her mind. The sanctuary in the twilight forest was not a house. It was a pocket of stillness hidden among dark trees, warded stones half buried in moss, air that smelled like cold pine and rain. The path there twisted in ways Nyxia could not have retraced alone, as if the forest refused to be mapped. They waited. Hours stretched. Oryn fell asleep against Nyxia's shoulder, his breath warm on her neck. Guards stood silent. Jerk paced like a caged blade. Nyxia's wrist burned now and then, faint pulses like distant thunder. "What is happening?" Nyxia demanded finally. Jerk did not look at her. "War." Nyxia's voice cracked. "Do you believe he will win?" Jerk glanced at her, and for the first time she saw something like honesty without armor. "He will win," he said, "but winning is not always gentle." Nyxia hugged Oryn tighter. "Then tell him to come back gentle anyway," she whispered, not caring how foolish it sounded. Jerk looked away. "He does not know how." Nyxia stared into the forest and felt something shift inside her, something that had been locked since the cage. "Then he will learn," she whispered. Near dawn, the mark on her wrist flared sharply, so hot it felt cold. Nyxia gasped and nearly dropped Oryn. Jerk spun, blade half drawn. "What?" Nyxia held her wrist up, face pale. "It burns." Jerk's eyes hardened. "We are compromised." Shadows moved between the trees. Nyxia stood, heart hammering. "No, no, they found us." A low growl rolled through the forest. "Hellhounds." Oryn woke with a gasp. "Mama." Nyxia forced calm. "Stay behind me." Jerk barked orders to the guards. They formed a ring, weapons out. Then the trees parted, and a figure stepped into the sanctuary clearing. Vaelithor. Nyxia's breath left her in a sob of relief, so sharp it hurt. He looked exhausted, cloak torn, blood on his sleeve, but he was alive. Oryn was behind him, limping slightly, jaw clenched. Nyxia ran to them without thinking, then stopped just short, afraid of what she might find if she touched him. Vaelithor gazed locked on her. "You are safe," he said. Nyxia's voice shook. "Are you?" Vaelithor gave a short nod. Oryn exhaled. "We are alive. That is the first victory." Nyxia looked past them. "Where is the High Archon?" Vaelithor's eyes went cold. "Not dead." Nyxia's stomach dropped. "Then why are you here?" Vaelithor stepped closer. "Because if I chase him now, he uses you to pull me into a trap. Because he is not only a man with power. He is a man with patience." Oryn spat into the moss. "He retreated behind his wards, but we broke enough of his chain to make him cautious." Nyxia stared at Vaelithor, bloodied sleeve. "And Malager." Oryn answered, voice flat. "I executed him. I would not risk his mouth opening again near the child. Nyxia flinched, then nodded slowly. Part of her wanted to say mercy. Another part remembered Malagar's smile and knew mercy was not meant for him. Oryn stepped forward, eyes wide. "Wolf Lord," he whispered. Vaelithor knelt, and for the first time Nyxia saw him do it without tension, without hesitation, as if the child pulled something human out of him like a thread that did not hurt. "Oryn," Vaelithor said softly. Oryn swallowed. "Are you my father?" Nyxia held her breath. She did not know what answer would do to her life, but she knew lying now would break something that could never be repaired. Vaelithor looked at Nyxia first, asking with his eyes. Nyxia felt tears rise again, hot and constant tonight, like her body was trying to wash old fear out of her blood. "Tell him the truth," she whispered. Vaelithor turned back to Oryn. "Yes," he said, "I am." Oryn blinked, then frowned like a child trying to solve a problem too big for his hands. "Did you make me in a cage?" Nyxia's stomach twisted. Vaelithor's expression tightened with quiet rage. "No," he said. "They used the cage to steal. They used your mother to anchor me, but you were not made in cruelty. You are here now, and I will not let them use you again." Oryn's eyes filled with tears, sudden and childlike. "I do not want to be a weapon." Nyxia felt her heart crack open. "You are not," she whispered, pulling him into her arms. Vaelithor stood and looked at Nyxia, and the tenderness in his eyes looked like it hurt him. "Nyxia," he said quietly. As she looked up, "I did not choose this," she said, voice trembling. "I did not choose a contract or a mark or a bloodline, but I choose my son. And if he is yours, then you are tied to my choice whether I like it or not." Vaelithor stepped closer. "I will not ask you to forgive the chain," he said. "I will ask you to use it." Nyxia frowned. "Use it how?" Vaelithor lifted his hand, palm open, not touching. "To protect him, to protect you, and to make sure the next time the High Archon reaches for our lives, he finds teeth." Nyxia stared at his open hand. She felt fear, because trusting him felt like stepping into fire. But she also felt something else, quieter, more dangerous. A hope. She placed her hand in his. The contact was not a spark. It was a steady warmth, like a hearth catching after a long winter. Vaelithor closed his fingers around hers, firm but careful. Sorin watched them with a look that was almost soft. Finally, he muttered. Nyxia looked at Sorin. "Do not act like you know me." Sorin shrugged. "I know my brother, and I know what it means when he holds a hand without trying to own it." Vaelithor glanced at Sorin, then back at Nyxia. "We will return to the keep," he said. "We will rebuild the wards. We will gather allies. The High Archon will not stop, but he will hesitate now." Nyxia swallowed. And the breathing door. Vaelithor's eyes went distant. It is an old gate that leads to my mother's crypt, he said. I sealed it because grief can be another kind of cage. But it has been whispering because the bloodline has returned. The keep recognizes its heir. Nyxia tightened her grip on his hand. Your mother. Vaelithor's voice softened. She died because she refused to give the circle what they wanted. Her crypt holds wards older than the High Archon. If we open it with care, it can protect Oryn. Nyxia nodded slowly. Then we open it with care. Vaelithor studied her face. You are not afraid of my darkness anymore. Nyxia let out a shaky laugh. I am afraid of everything, but I am tired of fear being the only thing I am. Vaelithor's gaze dropped to her mouth, then lifted again with visible restraint. You are not only fear, he murmured. You are the reason my beast learned the shape of restraint. Nyxia felt heat rise, not crude, not explicit, but intimate enough to make her breath catch. Do not say things like that, she whispered. Vaelithor tilted his head slightly. Why? Because it makes me want to believe you, Nyxia admitted, voice raw. Vaelithor's eyes softened. Then believe the part you can test. I will show you with actions, again and again, until love is not a word we are scared to say. Nyxia swallowed hard. She did not answer with romance. She answered with honesty. Then start with this. No more secrets about my son. No more decisions made without my voice. Vaelithor nodded once. Agreed. Oryn barked a short laugh. A contract without blood. Imagine that. Nyxia shot him a look. Do not make jokes about contracts. Oryn raised his hands. I will not. Oryn tugged Vaelithor's sleeve. Father. Vaelithor stilled, as if the word hit him like a blessing, and a wound at once. Ah, yes. Oryn looked up with solemn eyes. Will you teach me to not become a monster? Vaelithor knelt again, and this time the movement looked natural, as if he was finally learning a posture that was not battle. I will teach you to become yourself, he said. And when you feel the shadows calling, you will come to me and we will breathe together until the world is quiet. Oryn nodded, then leaned into Vaelithor's chest, small arms wrapping him. Nyxia watched the sight and felt something inside her soften painfully. This was what the circle had tried to steal, not just power, not just blood, but the simple human shape of a family. They returned to the keep that morning. The banners were torn. The stones smelled of smoke and iron. Servants moved quietly, cleaning, repairing, living because living was the only defiance they had left. In the courtyard, Vaelithor stopped and looked up at the towers, then down at Nyxia and Oryn. This place has been a cage, he said. Nyxia nodded. Ah, yes. Vaelithor gaze stayed on her. I want it to become a home. Nyxia hesitated, then said the truth that scared her. Then you have to let me stand beside you, not behind you. Vaelithor jaw tightened, then relaxed. Then stand beside me. In the days that followed, Vaelithor did not pretend peace had arrived. He trained guards, strengthened wards, sent messages through the obsidian slate, and met with Oryn in long conversations that ended with grim nods and weary relief. Yet in the middle of war preparations, small moments began to grow like fragile plants pushing through stone. Vaelithor stood in the training yard with Oryn, showing him how to breathe when his skin felt too small. When the shadows gathered around the child, Vaelithor did not recoil. He guided them like a father guiding a frightened animal back into calm. Nyxia watched, heart tight, and realized the beast in Vaelithor was not only hunger. It was protection that had been twisted by torture and was now untwisting itself slowly, because he finally had something worth being gentle for. One evening Nyxia found Vaelithor alone on a balcony, staring into the twilight forest where fog curled between trees like a sleeping serpent. You always look like you are waiting for an attack, Nyxia said. Vaelithor did not turn. Because I am. Nyxia stepped beside him, close enough to feel the cold of the night and the warmth of his body. Do you regret taking me? She asked. Vaelithor finally looked at her. I regret forcing you. I do not regret saving you. Nyxia swallowed. I do not know what I feel. Vaelithor nodded slowly. That is honest. Nyxia looked at his face, at scars that would never fully fade. Do you still feel the cage? Vaelithor's gaze went distant. Sometimes I wake and I can taste runes in my mouth, he admitted. Sometimes I hear laughter in the walls. Then I hear Oryn breathe, and it reminds me that I am not there anymore. Nyxia's voice softened. And me. Vaelithor looked at her like she was both danger and miracle. You remind me too, he said, not because you are a spell, because you are stubborn enough to stand in front of a monster and demand he be a man. Nyxia felt her pulse quicken. Then be a man now, she whispered. Vaelithor's brows drew together, confusion flickering. What do you mean? Nyxia took a slow breath. Ask me, do not bind me, do not threaten me. Ask me. Vaelithor stared at her for a long moment. Then his shoulders lowered, as if he had set down a weapon he had been carrying for years. Nyxia, he said, voice quiet. Will you stay in this keep because you want to, not because you must? Nyxia felt the question land in her chest like a stone and a spark at the same time. She looked at the forest, then at the scars on his face, then at her own wrist where the mark sat like a memory that refused to fade. I do not know how to trust you, she said, but I know how to watch you. I know how to listen to what you do, not what you promise. If you keep choosing us, I can try to choose you." Vaelithor exhaled slowly, and the sound was almost a laugh that did not dare become one. "Then I will keep choosing you," he said, "even on days when you hate me for it, even on days when I hate myself." Nyxia swallowed, then nodded once. "Ask me something else," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. Vaelithor's brows drew together. "What?" "Ask me if I want you," Nyxia said. The air between them tightened. Not crude, not explicit, just the sharp, dangerous honesty of two people standing too close to a truth they had avoided. Vaelithor looked at her mouth again, then at her eyes. "Do you want me, Nyxia?" Nyxia felt heat rise under her skin, and she hated that it came with fear, because fear had been in the room with them since the cage. She did not look away. "Yes," she whispered, "but I want you as a man, not as a beast, not as a lord, not as a storm that decides my life for me." Vaelithor nodded slowly, as if taking an oath. "Then you will have me as a man," he said. "I will not take what you do not give." Nyxia did not answer with words. She stepped closer until her breath touched his collar, then placed her hand flat on his chest, feeling the steady strength beneath the scars. Vaelithor did not move. He waited. Nyxia lifted her face and kissed him. It was not gentle, because nothing about them had ever been gentle at the beginning. It was careful, controlled, a promise with trembling edges. Vaelithor kissed her back like a man starving for warmth and terrified of breaking the bowl that held it. His hands stayed at her waist, firm and restrained, as if he was proving something to her and to himself with every breath. Nyxia pulled back first, forehead near his. "If you make me regret this," she whispered, "I will never forgive you." Vaelithor's voice was rough. "Then I will spend the rest of my life making sure you do not regret it." Behind them a small voice spoke, sleepy and confused. "Mama." Nyxia spun and saw Oryn standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. Nyxia froze. "Oryn," she said softly, "I am sorry. I did not mean to wake you." Oryn looked from her to Vaelithor, then frowned as if deciding whether the world was safe. "Are you fighting again?" he asked. Vaelithor crouched immediately, lowering himself to the child. "No, cub," he said, "we are learning." Oryn stared. "Learning what?" Vaelithor hesitated, then answered with surprising simplicity. "Learning how to be a family." Oryn blinked. His shoulders loosened. He padded forward and pressed himself against Nyxia's side, then reached for Vaelithor's hand with a small, careful grip. Nyxia felt her throat tighten. She looked at the three of them, hands linked, and it felt like the keep exhaled for the first time in years. The next morning, they opened the breathing door. Vaelithor did not do it alone. He brought Nyxia, Saurin, Jerk, and 3 trusted guards. Oryn stood between Nyxia and Vaelithor, holding their hands like he was the center of a circle that had finally closed. They descended into the lower corridors where stones sweated cold. The door was there, hidden behind a wall panel carved with old runes. It did not look alive, yet Nyxia heard it, a slow rhythm like breath. Oryn shivered. "It is awake," he whispered. Vaelithor placed his palm on the panel, but did not push. "This is my mother's crypt," he said quietly. "She was not perfect, but she died refusing to kneel. The wards she left here are old. They recognize blood. They recognize choice." Nyxia tightened her grip on Oryn's hand. "Then let them recognize him," she said. Vaelithor looked at her. "You are sure?" Nyxia met his gaze. "If we keep hiding from what he is, we teach him to be ashamed. I will not raise my son to hate himself." Vaelithor nodded once. "Then we do this." He opened the panel. The door behind it pulsed faintly, and the air changed, becoming colder and cleaner, like a deep cave that had never been touched by smoke. Vaelithor stepped aside. "Oryn," he said, "put your hand here, only if you want to." Oryn stared at the door. Fear trembled in him, but so did curiosity, and beneath both was something older, the pull of bloodline and belonging. "I want to," he whispered. He pressed his palm to the stone. The runes lit, not harsh, not burning, but warm violet like embers under ash. The breathing sound steadied, then softened, as if the door recognized him and relaxed. Nyxia felt the mark on her wrist warm, then settle like a knot loosening. The door opened without force. Inside lay a narrow chamber with a stone sarcophagus and a ring of ward stones. The air smelled faintly of dried herbs and old rain. On the sarcophagus lid was carved a woman with stern eyes and a crown of shadow. Vaelithor stood very still. "Mother," he whispered. Sauron removed his gloves and rubbed his hands together once, like he was bracing against memory. "She would have hated all this," he muttered. "She would have called us fools." Vaelithor did not look away from the sarcophagus. "She would have called us alive," he said, "and she would have wanted the child protected." Oryn looked up. "Is she asleep?" Vaelithor crouched beside him. "She is gone," he said gently, "but what she built can still stand for us." Nyxia stepped closer to the ward stones and felt the difference. It was not power that demanded. It was power that offered. "This can hide him?" Nyxia asked, voice quiet. "Truly?" Vaelithor nodded. "It can blur his bloodline. It can confuse the hounds. It will not erase him. It will not cage him. It will only make him harder to find." Nyxia exhaled slowly. "Then we use it." They placed a small drop of Oryn blood on one of the ward stones, then a drop of Nyxia blood, then Vaelithor blood. No ceremony with cruelty. No laughter in the dark, just a steady act of protection. As the ward stones accepted the offering, the air hummed, and the keep above seemed to shift, as if an old lock had clicked into place. When they returned to the upper halls, Vaelithor looked less haunted, not healed, but steadier. Oryn pulled him aside later in the courtyard. "You did not kill the High Archon," Oryn said. "Not yet," Vaelithor replied. Oryn's eyes narrowed. "He will not stop." Vaelithor's gaze drifted to where Nyxia stood with Oryn near the training yard, watching the child kick a small ball and laugh for the first time in days. "No," Vaelithor said, "but he will hesitate now. We broke his mage. We severed his clean path, and with the crypt wards we have time." "Time for what?" Vaelithor's voice softened. "Time to make something worth protecting. Time to build allies. Time to make sure the next war is not fought on our doorstep with our child as the prize." Oryn watched Nyxia for a long moment. "She is not what you expected." Vaelithor gave a faint smile. "No, she is better. She does not let me lie to myself." That evening, the keep held a quiet meal. Not a celebration, because the threat still lived beyond the walls, but a moment of breath, a moment of warmth. Servants brought stew and fresh bread. Candles burned. The air smelled of rosemary and smoke, and for once the smoke did not feel like a warning. Oryn sat between Nyxia and Vaelithor, and ate with messy seriousness. Oryn raised his cup. "To surviving," he said. Jerk raised his cup too. "To making the enemy regret their interest." Nyxia raised hers last, and her voice surprised herself with its steadiness. "To choosing each other more than once," she said. Vaelithor looked at her, as if the words were a vow he could finally believe. After the meal, Oryn fell asleep in Nyxia's arms, heavy and warm. Vaelithor carried him to bed without being asked, with the careful tenderness of a man who understood the weight of what he held. When Vaelithor returned to the hall, Nyxia was waiting near the hearth. "You came back," she said. Vaelithor stopped a step away. "I told you I would." Nyxia studied his face. "Will you ever tell me everything?" Vaelithor did not pretend. "Not all at once," he admitted, "but I will not hide what affects you and the child. No more." Nyxia nodded. "Then I will try not to punish you for the past every time I feel afraid." Vaelithor's eyes softened. "That is all I ask. Try." Nyxia stepped closer. "And the contract?" Vaelithor's gaze dropped to her wrist. "The blood contract still stands. It still protects you, but if you want it broken, I will break it." Nyxia touched the mark lightly. "Not yet," she said. "Not because I like it, because it is useful. Because the world is still hunting. And because I want the day we remove it to be a day of peace, not a day of fear." Vaelithor nodded slowly. Then we keep it until the right day, he said. And when that day comes, you will be the one to decide. Nyxia felt something loosen in her chest, something that had been clenched since the slum, since the dungeon, since the first time someone called her an object. Good, she whispered. Vaelithor hesitated, then lifted his hand, palm open again. May I? Nyxia did not answer with words. She placed her hand in his. Vaelithor drew her closer, not rough, not claiming, just holding her like she might vanish if he did not learn the shape of gentleness fast enough. Nyxia rested her forehead against his chest. If the High Archon comes again, she whispered, we fight him. But we do not let him turn us into what he wants. Vaelithor's voice was low and steady. We will not. Nyxia closed her eyes and listened. For once the keep did not sound like a cage. It sounded like a home, learning how to breathe. Did you enjoy this dark yet touching finale? I am very interested in your opinion. Do you believe a monster can learn to be human for the sake of a child, or did Vaelithor remain a beast at heart? I'm waiting for your thoughts. Also, write a few words about the sound. Were the emotional shifts in the dialogues clear? Am I reading too fast during the tense moments?